everything is sexist.
It's Weebo. What's up? So I have a story for you from two separate news sources that dates back to around June 11th, 2015. But Weebo, you say, why are you using such a dated story for an everything is sexist video? Well, because, my lovely viewers, it's some bullshittery, and I just found it, and oh my god, did it piss me the fuck off. We need to talk about it. You'll see what I mean. Spoiler alert. It's another colossal miscarriage of justice by a college institution. Like a good little YouTuber, I did the bare minimum of research and searched the interwebs for a second source that backed up the first source. Yay me. Aren't I just chock full of journalistic integrity? I found two of the same story, two variations of the same story. One from a center-left news source and one from a center-right news source. So I was like, not only is this a lovely opportunity to cover some absolute fuckery, but it's a wonderful opportunity to compare the left and the right. So, that being said, I'm going to cover both of these articles, and I'll try to be as concise as possible. Man receives oral sex while blacked out, gets accused of sexual assault 2 years later. Wow! Okay, step back, breathe it in. Has the hypocrisy settled yet? Is the obvious problem obvious yet? Do you not see what is wrong here? If you perhaps are having trouble seeing the issue, here, let me spell it out in idiot terms for you. A person who is blacked out means that they are so intoxicated that they suffer a temporary loss of consciousness and as a result have some level of amnesia and other skill deficits. I'm sorry, was that not idiot enough for you? Let me dumb it down a little bit more. Funny juice make brain go nighty-night. Now, what's the one thing that colleges and feminists tend to reiterate over and over and over and over when unconscious persons are unconscious?
And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, do you want tea? Because they're unconscious.
That's right, kids! In this case, the tea is sex, and the unconscious person is blacked out. So, what have we learned? Oh yes, don't do sexy shit with people who are unconscious. It's bad, it's creepy, and it's supposed to be sexual assault. You'd think that would be a universal thing, but you'd be wrong. So why in the hell was the person who was, blacked out and incapable of giving consent being accused of sexual assault 2 years after said person had been the one sexually assaulted? A student is suing his university for a miscarriage of justice after he was expelled following the verdict of a rape case. Oh yes, of course, because university justice, that's why. The 22-year-old man who goes by the pseudonym John Doe was kicked out of Amhurst College in Massachusetts, U.S. after the disciplinary board had concluded that he forced a female student to perform oral sex on him in February of 2012. Doe has always maintained that he had in fact blacked out after drinking heavily and received the sex act without any knowledge of it. So we have another he said, she said type of situation over here, and I will reiterate this. The problem with listen and believe is just this exact thing. Taking one person's word for anything is questionable, but especially in the cases where one's life could be ruined, you should approach any claim with the utmost skepticism. However, in this case, I am inclined to believe that the accused was innocent and also a victim based on certain bits of evidence that you'll become privy to momentarily like I am. 2 years later, he was accused of sexual assault and found guilty. 2 years after the fact, he was accused. 2 whole years. 2 whole effing years. I have to say something. In the event that you do find yourself as the victim of a sexual assault, I implore you to report it immediately after the fact. Don't wait any period of time, because the longer you wait, the harder it is to prosecute. Now, back to the bullshit. Why the fuck did you come forward with this bullshit 2 years later? But now, his lawyer has helped uncover powerful new evidence which proves his innocence, yet the college has not reopened its case. Is it not your moral and judicial responsibility to reopen a case in light of new evidence? If you're going to assume a position of dictating disciplinary action in instances of criminal acts, you have to do it well and you have to do it justly. Otherwise, your system is effectively jacked and a sham show, and you shouldn't assume such responsibility if it's too much for you to handle. Just saying. The accuser was the roommate of the woman Doe was dating at the time. Text message sent from her to a friend immediately after the alleged rape read, "It's obvious I wasn't an innocent bystander." Then she sent another message, reading, "Oh my god, I just did something stupid." Now, why is this relevant? Well, it speaks to her immediate reaction and state of mind directly after the fact. It's pretty obvious I wasn't an innocent bystander, and oh my god, I just did something stupid, means that on some level she understands that she done fucked up and committed sexual assault. Later that evening, she invited another male student back to her place for sex. This man has testified that she seemed friendly, flirtatious, and spirited, and not in any way anxious, stressed, depressed, or otherwise in distress. Now, why is this important? Because she didn't act the way you would presume someone would act after a sexual assault, or really any traumatic experience would. Now, to be fair, everyone has different ways of coping with trauma, I acknowledge that. However, friendly, flirtatious, and spirited are not among those common responses. In fact, they don't even come close. Late last month, Doe's lawyer, Max D. Stern, filed a lawsuit in U.S. District Court in Springfield, arguing that the college is guilty of a miscarriage of justice against his client. As the Department of Education and its Office of Civil Rights have made clear, Title IX protects any person attending college from sex-based discrimination, and requires colleges to have in place prompt, thorough, and impartial means of investigation and adjudicating claims of sexual discrimination. The college has put in place a process that is consistent with the requirements under Title IX and is fair to all parties. In this instance, the hearing board concluded that the individual violated the college's policies on sexual misconduct and respect for other persons. The college is confident that the hearing board followed the college's process in making these decisions. Well, thorough and impartial you are not. One does not reject opening a case involving sexual assault with new evidence being presented and get to walk away under the assumption that they are in fact thorough and impartial. Furthermore, the delusion that you were at all fair doesn't stand, as you took one person's unsubstantiated word over another person's without so much as even a proper investigation. Are you college? Are you really, despite the new evidence, that you refuse to even look at? So what about the other article? Well, it fills in some gaps and answers a few questions. I won't go through the entire thing because it would just get really repetitive. Both links will be in the description if you wish to read them. I'm just going to go through the highlights and what I think is relevant. So which questions and gaps am I talking about? Well, Johnson notes that the school has adopted the yes means yes definition of consent, meaning someone has to ask before performing any sexual act on another person and receiving an affirmative response. So the yes means yes. Good for you. No shit. What else is it supposed to mean? Okay, I got it. I get why he's being punished. He's guilty because he got a blowjob while male in possession of testosterone. Never mind that he was passed out. He didn't ask for consent. God damn the patriarchy, right? But the standard provides no way for accused students to prove they obtained such consent. For that matter, given that the sexual act was performed on the accused students, was there any evidence he provided affirmative consent? The school also requires drunk students engaging in sexual activity to be aware of the other person's level of intoxication, and warns students that an individual may experience a blackout state in which they appear to be given consent, but do not actually have conscious awareness or the ability to consent. Johnson asks how a student is supposed to have been aware of another student's intoxication or known that they were in the blackout state, as Amhurst doesn't provide an explanation. I'm absolutely not seeing how these absolute nerve herders are standing by their decision when their actual decisions are by definition massively throbbing contradictions. Like, if this contradiction were a person, it would be Bristol Palin. If it were a movement about equality, it would be feminism. If it were a vegan who was all about not killing, it would be Vegan Gains. Have I established how full of bullshit they are, or should I go on? The entire adjudication process at Amhurst revised after another student claimed the school mistreated her sexual assault accusation was designed to find guilt. Johnson wrote, an accused student may hire an attorney, but the attorney cannot say anything during the hearing. An accused student may receive a campus advisor who is not an advocate for the student. Meanwhile, the accuser's advisors is absolutely their advocate. Then what the fuck is the point of an attorney if they can't even speak to defend their client? What's the point of a hearing if the accused can't defend themselves? For Doe, his advisor was an administration who lacked tenure and trained in social justice education. Doe was not allowed to directly cross-examine his accuser and could only write down questions for the panel to ask her, leaving no room for follow-ups. The hearing panel, meanwhile, was made up of student life officials and other administrators trained in social justice education, none of whom had tenure. Amhurst, do you realize how arbitrary this whole thing is? That does not inspire confidence, and I bet that doesn't inspire student attendance much either. Second thing, social justice education, I'm curious as to what that means. Is that where you sit in a classroom and learn about proper hashtagvism and running a Tumblr blog about how racist, homophobic, and sexist everything is slightly to the right of you? Do you not see how absolutely flawed this process is? How completely outrageous that is? If he can't cross-examine his accuser and his representation can't cross-examine his accuser, then what? I think I'm having a stroke. There is no way that this is considered justice. In any case of the word, perhaps I'm having this horrible nightmare. Correct me if I'm wrong, but justice depicts a fair and impartial system. The investigator of the sexual assault claim lacked the subpoena power to actually investigate. Had the investigator been able to properly investigate, they would have uncovered the text messages that proved there was no assault. Well, then you can't call it much of an investigation, can ya? Why in the world are you doling out punishments without a formal investigation? This is one of those few cases where we actually have a good idea of what happened on the night in question. Doe accompanied the accuser, who was Doe's girlfriend's roommate, to her dorm room. The accuser performed oral sex on a blacked-out Doe. Johnson notes that even the Amhurst found Doe's accusation of being blacked out credible. Doe leaves. The accuser then texted two people. First, a male student she had a crush on, whom she invited over after a heavily flirtatious exchange earlier in the evening. Then, a female friend. The accuser said during her hearing that she only texted one friend to help her handle the assault as she felt very alone and confused. But her text with her female friend gave no indication of an assault. Rather, the accuser texted her friend, "Oh my god, I just did something so fucking stupid." She then proceeded to fret that she had done something wrong and her roommate would never talk to her again, because it's pretty obvious I wasn't an innocent bystander. Here's where we get a little bit more in depth into what the investigation lacked and the whole process of ruining this whole guy's life. She also complained that the other man who had come over after the alleged assault had taken until 5 in the morning to finally have sex with her. The accuser found herself friendless after the encounter when her roommate discovered what she'd done. I wouldn't want to be her friend either if I'd found that she was the type of despicable human being that, gave people blowjobs while they were blacked out and then accused them of sexual assault. Oh, and I think that John Doe was her roommate's boyfriend, so that would be like a triple whammy. Between the encounter with Doe and the accusation, nearly 2 years later, the accuser developed new friends. And as it happens, these new friends were all victims' advocates. Oh, I would love to hear that conversation with her new friends. "Oh, he was passed out and didn't ask you for consent to blow him. What a rapist." When Doe discovered the text messages, he presented the findings to Amhurst. The school refused to open his case. Casey Johnson summed up the case perfectly. Once again, this is a case in which the accuser, to put it charitably, misrepresented written evidence vital to her credibility, and this same material, her words, showed, if anything, that she initiated sexual contact against a student who even Amhurst's panel described as blackout drunk. Johnson wrote, and yet, according to Amhurst, the accuser is a sexual assault survivor. So, he's guilty because male, I suppose. Now, doesn't that seem like the type of sexist bullshit we should be outraged over? Not air conditioning, certainly. Where are the riots in the streets? Why is there no internet-wide outrage? Hashtag boycott Amhurst, am I right? So, if you can't tell, my blood is boiling. There are a few double standards here that are so enraging. Look, see, my issue is not with feminists who want to prosecute rapists, who are truly the scum of the earth. My issue is that they're not doing it universally. That we don't take male sexual assault seriously. That John Doe wasn't even given a fair shot at a defense or anything, to be frank. It's just the kind of ass-backwards thinking and prosecution and ridiculousness. It reminds me that we have a long way to go. And with that, I'll leave you. If you have your own stories or articles or anecdotes or what have yous that coincide with this with the hashtag EVERYTHINGISSEXIST video series that I'm doing, you can @ me on Twitter or on mine's at Weebo Jones, hashtag EVERYTHINGISSEXIST, or you can send me an email to Weebo0jones@gmail.com with the subject line hashtag EVERYTHINGISSEXIST. And we'll see. Okay, so, wow, this video was a hot mess.